Hello, welcome to the TheWrightGarage. Today I'm just going to be finishing up the rear valance on my classic Mini, but I just wanted to show you a couple welding techniques real quick while I'm doing that. I thought it'd be a good point in time to go ahead and show some welding techniques. I'm not a master welder or anything, but I have learned a few things over working on this car, so I just want to point them out and let you know that you can do it yourself with a cheap $300 MIG welder and using flux cord wire. You don't even need gas really, as long as you just be aware that you're going to need to grind a little bit more and do a little bit more to get the weld pretty than you are with argon gas or anything like that. So the first thing is I want to talk about spot welds, because on here you can see I have holes. And what I did was I tried to use a spot weld cutter, as you can see, and it worked for here. However, I made the mistake of not realizing that these were 3 panels together. This one here is for the body, and then this one underneath here is for the entire trunk assembly itself, and the very bottom one is for the rear valance, which is here on this lip. I'll go ahead and turn this welder off. After I had several failed attempts on the spot weld cutter, which actually it worked great for down here on the supports. As you can see, there's still a little bit of a hole, but these are perfect. But the spot weld cutter does work on some applications. Then I tried to use a drill to drill out the spot welds, and that's what all these holes are. And now that I realize that I need to fill these holes, so just a quick welding technique. You can use a copper plate right here. I just went to the plumbing section and got a copper pipe, and then used a hammer to bang it down flat, and using some vice grips to hold it on either side of the hole. And as you can see, I already filled in this hole here. So I'm going to need to grind it down smooth. But let's see underneath. I'm not going to be able to see underneath, but it's completely flat on the bottom because it's against the copper plate. It's not going to let the weld stick to the copper plate itself, but it will stick to the steel that you're trying to weld because of the material of the copper. So let me show you this real quick. So I took it off there, and as you can see, it didn't stick at all to the plate itself. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place it here with both vice grips on either side, and then do the same thing and fill this spot weld. And I'll just go ahead and demonstrate that for you real quick. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and take my copper plate. I'm going to place it underneath that hole that needs to be filled. Go and clamp it down nice and tight. I'm using 2 just to be on the safe side to make sure that it's got a good clamp on both sides. Don't get too close to the fill hole, because you're going to want to overfill it just a little bit. That way you get good penetration and you know that your weld is all the way through. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the welder now and go ahead and fill this. Alright, and that's it. Alright, so as you can see, the weld is now filled, or the hole is now filled. And that one is actually pretty good. So it's going to require very little grinding, and now I have a solid panel again. And not only that, but since this is 2 panels together, I'm actually welding these panels back together at the same time. So it's kind of like a 2 for 1. So the next, I'm going to go ahead and fill the rest of these holes here, and then I'll go on to plug welding, which I'm going to have to do to get this body panel, the rear valance, back on, because I'm going to have to plug weld here. Alright, so we're here. We're simulating spot welds by plug welding and the rear valance. As you can see, I filled in all those holes and I went ahead and ground them down. Pretty nice and smooth now. So moved on to the rear valance. For the body panel that you want to spot weld on, what I did was I took a 3/16 drill bit, as you can see. Alright, so I took my 3/16 drill bit. I went ahead and drilled in through the first layer of metal, so that's going to be to the body panel that you're trying to spot weld on, or plug weld on. You're going to drill through that first metal, and then I like to drill just a little bit into the metal that you're trying to weld on the body panel to. The reason being is, first off, it's going to give you some nice bare metal to actually start the weld onto, and the other reason is because it gives an indent for the weld to want to go into, and it's going to burn into it a little bit more. You might even get a little bit of burn through, but it's going to make a stronger weld if you drill just a little bit into the metal that you're trying to do your spot welds onto, or plug welds. So as you can see, I got my holes here for my plugs, so I'm going to go ahead and do those now. Alright, so you want to get in a nice comfortable position, and with your ground for your welding, you want to make sure that it's attached to the body panel you're trying to weld on, so in this case it's valance. Make sure you grind down some metal, or grind down to the metal if there's paint on it, or if you've already painted it. Like in my case, I did the undercoat and stone chip on the inside already. That way I can get to the paint on the inside so it doesn't rust in this area where I can't get to it after I tack it on or weld it on. So make sure you grind down, like I've already ground down a spot right here for the clamp on the valance itself, so I have a nice ground. Right, and you want to make sure you get in a nice comfortable position for your weld. What you're going to do is I start in the middle and I kind of spiral outward. So I'm going to start in the middle of the weld and I'm going to spiral outward. Alright, I had a little bit of burn through, so I had to fill in some of these welds, which is why it took a little bit longer than I wanted to, but I'm pretty sure these are going to be pretty strong plug welds. So I'm going to go ahead and take the drill to them and grind them down, look at them, make sure they're good. Alright, so I went ahead and took my wire brush to clean up the welds just so I can show you what they look like here. So these are the plug welds. Once again, I'm using flux cord wire, so it's going to be a little bit uglier, which is going to require me to grind a little bit more. But I'm pretty happy with it, seeing how this panel is definitely firmly on there now. So I'll just go ahead and grind them down, clean them up a little bit, and then move on to the other side, and after a few of these, it'll be ready for paint. So this is what your spot welds should look like, or your plug welds should look like after you've ground them down. They should be nice and smooth, just like that. You can't even tell that there's welds holding that panel onto that the other panel now. So now, for this one, I'm just going to prime it and paint it because they came out pretty flat and smooth, and this is underneath the car, so I'm not too worried about putting Bondo and stuff like up here. So I'll just prime it and paint it, and it'll be good to go. Alright, and I just want to show you real quick what it looks like when everything's painted and done. I still need to buff it, but it should give you a good idea of what all that hard work that you're going to do is worth, or where it gets you and why it's worth it. So here it is. Alright, and if we look down at these plug welds, I don't know if you can see them that well, but I didn't put any Bondo or anything on there, and it's completely smooth and just looks great. I've already put paint and clear coat on it. I did some paint blending just by sanding all the way up into here into the clear coat, sanding the original paint off all the way up to here. So when I put the new paint on, I just kept kind of lightly going up higher and higher until it was really just a mist kind of covering up the old paint. And then I did the same thing with the clear coat, except I brought the clear coat up a little bit higher and clear coated the old paint. That way it just blended in real nicely, and when I buff it, you won't even be able to tell that there's a difference really. Other than, of course, down here it's nice, dark, fresh paint. Up here it's a little bit lighter, but that smooth transition will make it easier on the eye, so you can't really tell that there's that there was a repair done, and that paint goes all the way across like that. But the panel joining, you can't even tell where the panel is joined. I don't know if you can see it from different angles. It's completely seamless and smooth. except for right here is a little bit of a divot. That was my mistake, but there's going to be so much molding, and then the wheel arch is going to cover it. You won't be able to see it anyway. But yeah, so I got rid of all the car cancer, all the rust on the back end of the car between the rear subframe replacement, the cutting of the body panels, and all the grinding and everything that we did. And if you've been following, you know all the work that was put in, but it's well worth it. So if you have any questions, comments, or even tips and techniques that I can learn from, please definitely put them in the comment section, because I want to learn just as much as everybody else, especially when it comes to working on their car. It's just a passion of mine, and if it's a passion of yours and you've learned something through trial and error like I have, then please let me know. That way I don't have to learn it through trial and error, we can just learn from each other. So I just thank you for sticking around, and if you have any questions, I'll try to answer you, and if I don't know the answer, I'll let you know I don't know the answer, because I definitely don't know everything. And like I said, we'll just learn from each other. So if you see a question that's unanswered, or I say I don't know the answer, please answer that person back, so we can all just become like a little tiny community and get our questions answered and learn from each other, like I said previously. So stay with it. Don't pay somebody else to do your body work for you. It's much more prideful and enjoyment to do it yourself. Much more enjoying to do it yourself. And my next project will be the front end replacement. That's going to be the entire front end of the car pretty much. And I'm sure there's going to be more weld and rust spots that we're going to find there. So, yeah, stick with it.